The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Welcome everybody, and thank you for joining this APNG International webinar in partnership with the Cloud Industry Forum. My name is Mark Constable, and I'll be in the background just keeping an eye on questions and everything, and shortly be handing over to your presenters, Jason Wyatt from the Cloud Industry Forum and Tony Capewell from Your Cloud Works. Jason will be taking you through the Cloud Industry Forum Code of Practice, which is designed to promote high standards and help cloud and managed service providers stand out in a crowded marketplace. Jason will also highlight the certification process, and Tony will be sharing his experiences having achieved CIF certification with Your Cloud Works. Just before I hand over to Jason and Tony, though, just a couple of quick housekeeping items. So the first is questions. Unless you're joining us via a tablet or mobile device, you should have an option on screen to submit questions. Feel free to do that at any stage. We'll keep an eye on them in the background, and we'll try and address as many of those as we can towards the end. And the second point is we are recording this session, so everyone that's registered will receive a follow-up notice from us that will contain the slides and also a link to the recording, so you can view again if you want to, or share it with colleagues and associates. So without further ado, I'll now hand you over to Jason first of all, who will kick things off. Over to you, Jason.
Thank you, Mark. My name is Jason Wyatt. I'm the Business Development Director at the Cloud Industry Forum. I've been in the IT industry for about 23 years, and of that I've been hosting for 20. I've been with the Cloud Industry Forum for the last just over a year, and prior to that I actually took 3 companies through the Code of Practice, so I'm well versed on what's required and what it takes to actually gain the accreditation. To give you a little bit of a background on the Cloud Industry Forum and who we are, the Cloud Industry Forum is a member-led industry body that champions the trust and transparency of doing business in the cloud. If you haven't heard of us, we've been around for about 7 years, I've said, and we're a not-for-profit organisation. We have 3 distinct programs. Firstly, the industry membership, which is typically aimed at industry vendors and distributors, companies such as sort of Dell, HP, Microsoft, VMware, those type companies. But it's not exclusive to those organisations, because we're starting to see some sort of diversification, really, with companies like Deloitte, who have recently joined, and obviously they're more of a sort of consultancy-led organisation. We have the professional membership program, which is aimed at IT managers, directors, consultants, etc., that wish to learn more about cloud and access a wealth of information that we have on the Knowledge Hub. We also have, which has been recently launched, the e-learning platform, which is to enhance their knowledge and personal development. And then lastly, we have the Code of Practice. This is the accreditation program, which is aimed at cloud service providers and managed service providers, which adds credibility to their cloud solution or services. That's obviously what we're going to focus on today. Before I talk about the Code of Practice, I just want to share some information with you. Every year we produce a number of white papers. Each one is topical. The last one focused on digital transformation, and the information we capture is from a survey of 250 companies, all verticals and all markets. What this allows us to do is relatively accurately gauge what is happening at the coalface. I think it's quite pertinent to share the statistics on this slide, as these are real responses from real companies as to their concerns about migrating to the cloud. The Code of Practice certainly helps to eliminate most, if not all, of these concerns, as it shows you've taken measures to ensure the service you're delivering is credible and you have best practices in place. It's no surprise that data security is still number 1 on the list, still very high at 70%. Interesting though, on the last white paper that we produced, we asked all of those that had moved to the cloud in any way, shape or form, how many had actually experienced a breach in data security, and the answer was less than 5%. So I think it's more of perception than reality. and you'll see that it's still 61% cited data privacy. I'm going to talk a little bit about data privacy in another slide, because you may not be aware, or you may be aware that there's new government legislation coming into effect, and I think it's aimed in sort of 2 years' time, so 2017, 2018, and the Code of Practice is absolutely going to address that as well. The Cloud Industry Forum's Code of Practice incorporates standards and frameworks that are in line with ISO 27001 and ITIL. So if any of you have been through sort of ISO 27001, you're kind of well on your way to achieving the Code of Practice certification. It's very much focused on your cloud proposition and your cloud delivery processes and procedures. If you don't already have ISO certification, it's a great way to demonstrate that you're adopting best practices. If you do the Code of Practice, it massively complements your ISO certification. So it's not one that you think, well, I've got ISO, so I don't need to go through the Code of Practice. It absolutely enhances, because obviously ISO 27001 is very much focused on your internal processes and procedures, whereas the Code of Practice is focused on your cloud proposition. And of course, in view of the change in data privacy directive, we'll be rolling out in the very near future a bolt-on that will ensure your company is compliant prior to the mandatory legislation in 2 years. We are actually working with central government to try and get the Code of Practice as recognised as achieving the requirements of that legislation. So all companies that are currently Code of Practice certified will have the option to go through the additional bolt-on, and those that are actually going through the Code of Practice will actually see that incorporated within the certification scheme. One of the main objectives of the Code of Practice is to help ensure disclosure of essential information so that consumers of cloud services can make better, more informed decisions on choosing a supplier based on this information. So the Code of Practice itself is made up of what we call 3 pillars. And the 3 pillars, and I'm going to run through them individually. We've got transparency, capability, and accountability. Looking at transparency, in its simplest term, this is a link on your homepage of your website, which is a disclosure statement which will contain information such as your corporate identity and responsibilities, the scope covered by the code, and third-party coverage, etc. I mean, there's a brief list there on the screen, like your company location, company hierarchy, and it's basically information about you and your company that, again, any potential customer can look at that, and it will give them the essential information they need when they're actually making an informed decision about choosing a supplier. This information, like I said, is a disclosure statement, so it is accessible from your website. When we look at the capability side of things, for those that have been through sort of ISO accreditation, the documentation we require for this is 7 different sections and will contain information like your information security policy, your business continuity policy, your terms and conditions. All of that information will need to be submitted through the Code of Practice portal, and it's kept completely private, so that information will not be displayed or disclosed to any potential customer. And when we're getting that information, it's not like we're going to sort of nitpick through that information. It's just to ensure that you understand what those processes are, what those procedures are, and that you have them in place. Lastly, we've got the accountability section, and this is where the executives of your company will commit to the Code of Practice. It also requires that you submit a professional reference, which can come from any kind of legal entity that you work with, whether it's an accountant, solicitor, or even if you're working with a consultant that's actually taking you through any kind of sort of certification. Once you've actually been through that and you've submitted all of that information into the Code of Practice portal, successful candidates will then have use of the SIF certified logo, and it will be added to, I mean, you can use it on all of your documentation, on your emails, on your header paper if you want to, but it'll also be available on our website, and there'll be a short synopsis of your organisation and what it is you do with a link to your website. So the benefits of the code of practice, I want to take you through this sort of in a different way, really, because I've not always sat on this side of the fence, if you like. Like I said, I've been working in the IT industry for the last sort of 23 years. Of that, I've been in hosting for sort of 20 years, and over the last 6 years, I've taken 3 companies through the code of practice. The main driving force was to add credibility to the solutions that we offered. 2 of the companies that I worked for didn't have any other certifications other than the usual kind of industry certifications, the likes of, you know, Microsoft Gold Partner or Cisco certified. So going through the code of practice actually added the level of credibility that we felt our customers needed. And then the last organisation that I worked for, they actually had ISO 27001, 2013 variant, and this just massively complemented the ISO accreditation. And it was because that organisation had their own data centre. It said more actually about their cloud proposition than just their internal processes. And really, it just rubber stamped what we were already doing. I would say it gave the companies that I work for a real differentiator when trying to win new business, especially with cloud, as there's so many companies offering their own third-party solutions that in my view, it separates the wheat from the chaff. It really is a differentiator when you're putting one foot forward. So, I mean, can it be trusted? I would say absolutely yes. The Code of Practice, it is a self-certification program. It does rely on you providing information that is truthful and representative of your internal process and procedures. The information you provide will be checked and verified independently by APM Group, who, when they're looking at the information you've provided, you know, like I said, they're not looking to nitpick and look for specifics within your information security policy. They just want to know that you understand what an information security policy is, that you have one, and you have the measures in place to adopt it. Obviously, you know, if there's anything glaring when you submit the information into the portal, when they're going through the auditing process, they will actually come back to you and they will work through each of the individual sections to say where there's more work needed, or at least give some guidance on additional information that you may need to submit. Obviously, by going through this process, and when you are looking to, you know, generate new business, and you say that we're Code of Practice, SIF certified, you can direct your customers to the SIF website, and they can actually look and understand what the SIF certification is all about. So to that end, it will give your customers reassurance that you've met a level that's compliant with what you're doing. And the only time that we'll actually conduct an audit is if one of your customers, they experience an issue. It actually gives them a mechanism to raise issues that will then be fully investigated, and any misuse will result in withdrawal of the SIF certification mark. So the actual process for applying for the Code of Practice is relatively simplistic. You go to the Cloud Industry Forum website, which is www.cloudindustryforum.org. You can download the information pack, and within the information pack, there's a number of PDFs there that will actually take you through all the different sections that are required. You can actually complete a project plan template if you want to. You can fill in an assessment spreadsheet, which helps you through each of the steps. So you can actually see right from the outset where you might have weaknesses, where you might already have the information, and then the next step would be to register via the SIF website. You can then pay the appropriate fee, and when we say the appropriate fee, fees are actually banded kind of according to your company's size and turnover. You know, you can actually, if you're sort of sub 1 million turnover, then the actual fee for that is about £500, and it is a 12-month annual renewal. You then complete the online application, and it doesn't have to all be done in one day. Obviously, you can actually, keep going back into the portal. You can work on a bit of information, upload some documentation, see what the next section is, see what information you need to collate for that, and what other perhaps stakeholders that you need to work with within your organisation. Then you can come back in to the portal, submit the information again, and go on to the next section. Once you've actually completed the online application and you're satisfied that you've got all the information into the portal and you've submitted it, that's when then APM Group will go through and audit any documentation that you've provided, and if you need to go back through, they'll obviously identify that and let you know. Once it's been accepted and passed, then you'll be sent notifications saying that you've successfully accredited, and you'll be sent the logo pack so you can actually use the correct logos on your website and on your documentation. We'll also announce it with a press release and through social media, and then we'll also put all your information on the Cloud Industry Forum websites, which will be accessible to anybody that's coming to the CIF website to find a certified supplier. If you want to actually go straight into register, there's a link at the bottom of the page, which is the selfcert.cloudindustryforum.org. If you want to make a note of that, then you can actually go and register immediately. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to hand you over to Tony Capewell, who's the Managing Director of your IT Works, which is also your CloudWorks. Tony and your CloudWorks have been Code of Practice certified for a number of years now, and I think his views and thoughts on the accreditation will be invaluable to you deciding whether you want to actually go through the process. So over to you, Tony.
Thank you, Jason. Afternoon. So yeah, as Jason mentioned, we back in 2002 we were only a very small business and only been going for a couple of years, and we made the decision that we were going to move into providing cloud solutions. So through the selection of an infrastructure partner to help us deliver that, we were made aware of the CIF certification and started the process back in 2012 to become CIF certified. Back then we were predominantly looking to provide Citrix hosted desktop to small medium businesses in the UK, and the CIF certification basically gave us a little bit more of a push and into the market, and gave the customers that we were talking to, initially all of our existing customers looking to move from an on-premise solution to the cloud, gave them a bit more reassurance that we knew what we were talking about and the systems that we provided were secure. Since then, we've grown significantly. We've migrated, I think, pretty much every customer. I've got one or two still with on-premise solutions, but every customer that we had to the cloud. And certainly, when we've been talking to existing clients who have had to go out and get other quotations, when we've come up against competitors that are not CIF certified, it made a huge difference in that decision for our customers. We've also experienced that with winning new business. There is only a few companies at the moment that are CIF certified, and certainly when we've gone up to win new business and we've got the CIF certification, it's definitely swayed the decision in our favour. We are sort of specialised in now. We are your IT Works at the moment. In the next month or so, we're changing to your CloudWorks, which is kind of realigning ourselves with what we do. And we are predominantly a cloud solution provider now. We don't really do any on-premise solutions. So we do the Citrix hosted desktops, Google for Work and Google for Education offerings. I think I've kind of covered some of these points in what I've just said, but yeah, we chose to go down the CIF certification route to prove to clients that we are fully committed to delivering a highly secure, resilient platform to the customers to ensure that their business is kept safe and secure, and with the CIF certification that just backs everything that we do up. That's why we chose to go down the route. The infrastructure provider that we chose to help us deploy the solution is also CIF certified, so we get a transparency through from them to us and then through to the client. So it's just a very seamless process that we have with our contracts between us and our infrastructure provider. So our process, the initial process to go through to gain the CIF certification, we had a member of staff internally that was not full-time but dedicated to managing the application process, and that process took us about 3 months to go through, and was relatively painless. What it helped us do was define some of the processes internally with regards to delivering a solution to a client, and gave us some tracks that we could follow and then expand on as we needed to, as we went through, brought on our first customer, second, and so on, and we've kind of adopted that and adapted that throughout the last 4.5 years of delivering cloud solutions. So it was very helpful in a new area that we were moving into, from a traditional managed service on-premise solutions to a cloud solution, and it allowed us to have some kind of guidance along the way as we were moving through our journey. Through APMG and through the guys at the Cloud Industry Forum, throughout that whole process, they were more than helpful and basically held our hands through the whole process. I think we were one of the very early adopters of the or certified companies of the CIF certification, and so I think we kind of got very, very good experience from them with hand-holding and making sure we were doing everything right throughout the whole application process. We've now just renewed, I think we just renewed we're in our 5th year now, and it certainly has made a massive difference to us as a business. We didn't, at the time, we didn't see it as a marketing shortcut, we just saw it as a benefit to the business to help us improve the services that we offer, and show clients that we are 100% behind what we're delivering. Not many people, what we've experienced, and we've used the CIF certification as a marketing tool, not in its entirety, but just to let people know what the CIF certification is, information about the Cloud Industry Forum, and that we are governed by that code of practice. And generally, when we're talking to new clients, once they get to understand what the Cloud Industry Forum is and the code of practice is, they really understand that if they're going to choose a cloud solution, then they need to go with somebody that's actually got this certification and code of practice. So it's really benefited us over the years with winning new business. Yeah, so as I've kind of covered, obviously when we've been coming up against new customers, and we've had going up against competitors that don't have the certification, it's certainly swayed the customer's decision to move with us and take out a cloud solution with us. So it's definitely been a huge benefit to us over the last 4 years. I've covered this. I'll cover the second point as well. So yeah, with our existing client base that we've pretty much migrated now to hosted desktop solutions, some of those had to go out and get second, third quotations just from a financial point of view, but they also noticed and recognized that not many cloud solution providers out there have the CIF certification. So they recognized that our existing client base recognized it, as well as the new customers that we bring on board. As far as what we offer and how we go through the process of migrating customers across, as I've already said, the CIF certification process has allowed us to hone our internal processes and make the whole process of migrating clients over to the cloud a much more systematic migration, and almost fault-free from moving from on-premise to a cloud solution. So we adapt that every time we do a migration. There's always something that we find that we need to change, or so the next one always, as we go through them, each one becomes a much simpler process to do. So yeah, it's been a huge asset to us as a business.
Tony, thank you ever so much for adding to the webinar today. That's been absolutely fantastic. Now, we've got a short session here for any questions that anybody may have. Mark, do you want to open up so anybody can raise any questions to us?
Yeah, sure. There's a few questions around the cost, which I think you might have covered. I think you covered a little bit earlier, but perhaps you can remind us what the costs for certification are.
Okay, so the costs are actually on a sliding scale, depending on the turnover of the business. I know it starts from sort of £500 and it can go up to about 5,000. The best thing to do is to actually go to the Cloud Industry Forum website. Click on the Code of Practice, and there's a link there for cost for self-certification, and you can put how much your turnover is, and it'll give you an indication on what it'll actually cost to go through the accreditation.
Great, thanks, Jason. Secondly, I think you might have covered this as well, but how long is the typical certification process?
I mean, that really depends. I mean, Tony sort of said with his organisation it took them 3 months. Now, I've actually gone through the process with a company that had been through ISO 27001, and we got them through the certification. I think it was within about 10 to 14 days. I'd say that's kind of an exception to the rule, really, because most companies that go through this, it's not a dedicated full-time post, so I think typically it's 2 to 3 months. It really depends on what information that company has, whether there's other policies or procedures that need to be put in place and documented. It does depend on the organisation. There is actually a 6-month window from initially registering to actually completing the certification, and if you find that you're falling outside of that window, all you've got to do is notify us, and we can generally extend it, to cover any additional time that you may need.
Thanks, Jason. And just remind us how long the certification lasts and the renewal process.
So the certification lasts for 12 months from the actual date that you gain the accreditation. So even if you registered today and you didn't complete until, let's say, the end of August, you'd have 12 months from the end of August then as part of your certification. We'll actually send you a renewal notice. It's I think it's 2 to 3 months prior to the renewal, so it gives you plenty of time to go back into the portal, refresh yourself with the information that you've provided. Most organisations, it's quite a straightforward process, because providing their process and procedures haven't changed in the course of the 12 months, it's pretty much rubber stamping the ones that they've already put there. The main documentation that perhaps does get changed would be like an organisational structure diagram. Because obviously, you have joiners and leavers throughout perhaps that 12-month period. And then lastly, it's again just on the accountability section, one of the directors confirming that it adheres to the code of practice and also submitting an additional professional reference. The process itself for renewal shouldn't take any more than, if you did it full time, you could do it within a day. It shouldn't take any more than a couple of days, if you're just sort of dipping in, dipping out.
Thanks, Jason. This question's addressed to Tony, but I'm sure you'd like to input as well, Jason. If customers were asking for certified code practice in their tenders, it would create more demand. How do we get more customers doing this?
Well, what we found with the, because not when you go to a business, not many people have heard of the Cloud Industry Forum, and it's really an education process you have to go with the customers and really emphasise what the Cloud Industry Forum do, what the code of practice is, so that the customer can then make up their own mind as to whether that is important for them. And obviously we know it's important, and what we found generally with customers is that once they understand what it actually is, then for them it makes it's a no-brainer really. They make the decision that they need to find a cloud solution provider that is certified with the code of practice, and that's what we found with every customer that we've educated on this Cloud Industry Forum.
And I mean, in addition to that, we as the Cloud Industry Forum, we recognise that we perhaps haven't reached our target audience, which is at the end of it is end businesses, and we do need to educate end businesses about making informed decisions when they're choosing a cloud service provider. So to address that, we've been working with our PR agency recently, and we're going to start doing a process of informative advertorials, I think you would call them, with the Federation of Small Businesses, the Institute of Directors. We're also looking at the Chambers of Commerce as well, so that we can really get that message out there and try to start educating end businesses on what they need to do. In addition to that, we've got the professional membership program, which is absolutely aimed at those type of businesses, where it might be the managing director, it might be somebody who's appointed to look after the IT, who wants to learn more about the cloud, wants to know more about what they should do and things they should look out for when migrating to the cloud. So we've launched that program in earnest at the start of this year. We did a big launch at Cloud Expo Europe this year. So we're really hoping that the message is now going to start resonating with a lot of end businesses.
Great, thanks guys. That's nearly all the questions. Just there are a couple around an exam as well, but just to confirm, there is no exam associated with the certification, so it's all about the certification of the organisation. So no online exams, or no exams.
Absolutely, there's no exams to speak of. If an individual is looking to go through the e-learning platform, then we can have a discussion. If they wanted to, if a company wanted to do the code of practice as well as the professional membership, we could obviously do some kind of scheme with that. In which case there are exams as part of that e-learning process, but it's not part of this sort of webinar today.
Thanks, Jason. I think one more final question. Are there any other competing standards for COP?
There are other standards, but they're not really that recognised in the UK. You've got the Cloud Security Alliance, who are very much a US outfit. We actually do work alongside them. We do share knowledge and information with those organisations. Obviously, we don't share absolutely everything, because they do compete with us. But they're not very big in the UK. I think the Cloud Industry Forum is very much aimed at a UK audience. We are looking to expand it out into Europe. There's also the Star Alliance, which is a German-based organisation. However, that's not really geared towards managed service providers and cloud service providers. It's very much focused on the vendor community.
Cool, thanks, Jason. Thanks. I think, that's all, most of the questions answered, I think, in one way or another. So that brings us to the end. Just need to thank everyone for joining us, taking time out of busy schedules. Really appreciate that, and we hope it's been a useful session for you. We'll leave this final slide on display for a few moments in case you want to jot down any of the links there. So thank you once again for everyone for joining, and thank you Jason and Tony for the presentation. Thanks everyone. Bye bye.
Thank you. Cheers.
Can I just add, for those that are still on the call, there is a 25% discount code available for all webinar attendees today. When you go through to register on the SIF website, just enter in the voucher code SIF COP 2016, and that'll entitle you to a 25% discount. And thank you.